The auction room smelled of dust, desperation, and quiet shame. In the back corner, two small figures clutched each other, as if letting go would mean disappearing forever. No one noticed them at first. Not the men flipping through papers or the women whispering prices under their breath, until a young billionaire, walking in out of pure curiosity, felt something tighten painfully in his chest. He did not know why his steps slowed or why his breath caught, only that something in that room was about to shatter the life he thought he understood. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that fate can still surprise us when hope feels lost, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this remind us that humanity still matters. Ethan Walker had built his empire fast and young. By 32, he was one of the most talked about tech entrepreneurs in the United States, known for his sharp instincts, relentless drive, and guarded private life. He lived in glass towers and private jets, surrounded by people but deeply alone. Years earlier, he had lost a woman he loved in a tragic accident, along with the unborn children she had carried. Or so he had been told. That loss hardened him, pushing him into work as a shield against grief. He stopped asking questions about the past, convincing himself survival meant never reopening old wounds. On that gray afternoon, Ethan was attending a charity-related property auction in a struggling Midwest town, a place far removed from his usual polished world. He told himself he was there to explore redevelopment opportunities, but something about the quiet poverty of the area unsettled him. The building hosting the event was old and worn, and the people inside carried a heavy look of lives that had given up expecting mercy. Near the edge of the room, barely visible, sat two identical girls no older than 7. Their clothes were clean but threadbare, their hair unevenly cut, and their eyes far too old for their faces. They held hands tightly, whispering prayers under their breath. The woman standing behind them, their stepmother, watched the room with cold impatience, treating the girls like burdens she was eager to discard. She had fallen into debt, resentment, and bitterness after their father's death, and instead of protecting the children, she saw them as obstacles to her own escape. Ethan noticed the twins when one of them looked up at him, not with fear, but with a quiet, searching recognition that made his heart stumble. He could not explain it, but the room seemed to fade, replaced by memories he had buried. The curve of their faces, the intensity of their gaze, and the strange familiarity hit him all at once. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just sympathy, but his body refused to listen. As the auction progressed, Ethan slowly realized the horrifying truth of what he was witnessing. The twins were being offered under the guise of an illegal guardianship transfer, dressed up as adoption fees and care arrangements. It was exploitation hiding in plain sight. His chest burned with anger and disbelief. The idea that children could be treated as transactions shattered his controlled exterior. Without fully understanding why, Ethan stepped forward. His voice was calm, his offer decisive. He covered every fee, every debt, every condition, demanding immediate legal custody under emergency protection laws his lawyers swiftly invoked. The room fell silent, stunned by the authority in his presence. The stepmother accepted without hesitation, relieved to be free of responsibility, never once looking back at the girls. As the twins were led away, their hands still locked together, one of them glanced back at Ethan with tears slipping down her cheeks. In that look, something inside him broke open. For the first time in years, he felt grief, rage, and an unfamiliar flicker of hope colliding inside his chest. The days that followed were chaotic and emotionally draining. Ethan arranged medical evaluations, therapy, and temporary housing, telling himself he was doing the right thing simply because it was right. Yet he found excuses to visit the twins daily, drawn to them by a force he could not name. They were quiet, polite, and deeply traumatized, speaking little but watching everything. They flinched at raised voices and slept holding on to each other, afraid that separation meant loss. Their names were Grace and Hannah, and every time Ethan heard them spoken together, something stirred painfully in his memory. Late one night, unable to sleep, he pulled out old documents he had locked away years ago. Hospital records, legal files, the death certificate of the woman he had loved, Sarah. He noticed inconsistencies he had ignored before, missing signatures, conflicting timelines, a closed investigation that had never truly answered all questions. Driven by a growing sense of dread, Ethan hired a private investigator. The truth unraveled slowly and brutally. Sarah had survived the accident. She had gone into premature labor during emergency treatment. Corrupt officials and family interference had falsified records, declaring the baby stillborn and Sarah deceased to cover medical negligence. In reality, Sarah had lived only long enough to give birth before passing away weeks later, her children secretly handed off through illegal guardianship channels. Grace and Hannah were his daughters. The realization nearly destroyed him. Ethan collapsed under the weight of lost years, stolen moments, and the unbearable knowledge that his children had grown up without him, suffering in silence while he built an empire meant to protect a family he thought was gone. Guilt wrapped around him like a vice, stealing his breath. He had believed grief made him strong, but now he understood it had made him blind. Ethan did not rush into explanations or grand gestures. Instead, he committed to rebuilding trust slowly, honoring the fragile hearts of two girls who had learned not to believe in permanence. He attended therapy with them, learned their routines, listened to their fears without interruption. He let them set the pace, understanding that love could not be bought, only proven through consistency. The twins struggled with nightmares, fear of abandonment, and confusion about their identity. Ethan struggled with patience, regret, and the fear that forgiveness might never come. But change came in small moments. Grace falling asleep on the couch beside him during a movie, Hannah reaching for his hand during a thunderstorm, laughter returning cautiously, like sunlight after years of darkness. As months passed, their home transformed. The sterile mansion filled with warmth, drawings taped to walls, and bedtime rituals that grounded them all. Ethan restructured his company, prioritizing ethical practices and child protection initiatives. His wealth gained purpose, no longer an arm against pain, but a tool for healing. The public eventually learned the story, but Ethan shielded the twins from media attention, determined to give them the childhood they deserved. He spoke openly about responsibility, faith, and redemption, acknowledging his failures without excuses. Through therapy and prayer, he learned that forgiveness was not erasing the past, but choosing to build a future despite it. Just before the ending, take a moment to comment below and share whether you believe family can be found again even after years of loss. Years later, as Grace and Hannah stood beside Ethan at a foundation opening dedicated to vulnerable,